Lowe's knows how to freshen up your yard, and it all starts with mulch. That's why we're introducing Mulch Week during SpringFest with can't-miss savings. Right now, get 5 bags of Stay Green Premium Color 2 cubic foot mulch for only $10. Plus, members earn 5 times the points on select mulch purchases all week long. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 4/9. Loyalty program subject to terms and conditions. Points are awarded on eligible purchases. Details at lowes.com/terms. Subject to change. Excludes Alaska and Hawaii.
Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Alison, and I'm so glad you're here to discover what brings out the best of you. This podcast is all about breaking free from painful patterns, mending the past, and discovering our true selves in God. I can't wait to get started as we learn together how to become the best version of who we are with God's help. Hey everyone, and welcome back to this week's episode of the Best of You podcast. Today's episode is for the part of you that tries really, really hard to get it all right. You might even say it's trying to get things perfect. Whether it's in your work, your relationships, your faith, your parenting, or even just in your image, the way you show up in the world, this part of you is compulsively trying to make things perfect. And here's the twist. This part of you might look put together on the outside. It might do a pretty good job of keeping things going, of keeping things looking perfect on the outside. But underneath, these perfecting parts of us are often driven by anxiety. Now, I've talked about anxiety on the podcast before, but this isn't your usual take on it. Today, I want to explore the way anxiety disguises itself, especially through perfectionism. Not necessarily the loud kind of, here I am announcing itself perfectionism that you're aware of, but more the subtle kind, the insidious kind, the kind that looks like overworking, people-pleasing, or just trying to get everything right. And this is where my own story comes in. And I've got a long journey, a long history with anxiety. But I began to realize that the roots of my anxiety story started up far before I actually had the experience of feeling anxious. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my own experience with anxiety and how it disguises itself. And then I'm going to walk you through what I think is the most important question to ask yourself if you find yourself doing any of these things that masquerades as anxiety. And then I'm going to offer you a guided reflection that you can do in real time at the end of today's episode. So if you're someone who has ever felt exhausted from trying to do all the things for all the people or trying to just get it all perfect, this episode is for you. Here's the key takeaway that I want you to remember. I'm going to give this to you right here at the top of the episode. Perfectionism is never about being perfect. It's about trying to manage fear. So in my own story, I never used to think of myself as an anxious person. I was very productive. I got things done. I knew how to connect with other people. I knew how to keep going. And it took me years to realize that what I called a strong work ethic or responsibility, or you can always count on me, was actually anxiety in disguise. For me, anxiety initially didn't show up as that feeling of anxiety that we often talk about in the psychological sense, right? As a racing pulse or spinning thoughts or even panic, like we're overwhelmed, like the world won't stop spinning around us. It eventually ended up showing that way, but for years, it only showed up as different forms of perfectionism. It showed up as overworking on all of my papers in graduate school, as saying yes to other people when I was dying to say no, as trying to perform my way into feeling connected, feeling accepted, and feeling safe in my communities around me. I remember vividly during one season when I was working full-time, I was also in graduate school full-time as a student. And one by one, my friends had started to move away. Many of them had gotten married. Some had started having kids. Some had just taken different jobs. And increasingly, I was literally isolated in my life. But I wasn't pausing to pay attention to what this shift was doing to the inside of me. I just kept working harder. I just kept coping more through taking on more work, through helping more people. And I remember one weekend where this all came to head really vividly. I had a paper due for a class I was taking. It was on the psychology of religion. It was a really interesting class, but I was working on this paper, and in the paper I had to describe this cathedral I had visited in town. I was describing the service and the liturgy and the mass and all the details of what that meant to the different people. And I could not stop perfecting the words, right? I kept just replacing one word with another word, or one sentence with another sentence, or trying to rearrange paragraphs. I was trying to get the paper to be perfect. It was my way of trying to be perfect. Some people do this with their physical bodies. Some people do this with their homes or with their cooking. Some people do this with their work in different ways. For me, it was just this process of trying to get this paper to be perfect. And I began to just barely become aware something's wrong here. There is no such thing as perfect, but I couldn't stop myself. The paper was far beyond good enough, but I couldn't stop myself in that moment. I couldn't stop rearranging words and sentences to just get it more perfect. Just a few days later, after turning that paper in, I had the first of a series of panic attacks. The truth is, anxiety for years have been showing up in increasing forms of perfectionism in my work. But because I was disconnected from the anxiety and the fear that was driving that perfectionism, I was disconnected from myself. And the truth is, at the heart of it, I was afraid if I slowed down, what would be left of me? If I said no, I would lose the little bits of connection that I still had. If I wasn't perfect, I might be left behind. But the truth is, all of those things had already happened. I was deeply lonely. I wasn't connecting with other people. But the productivity and the perfectionism and the hyper responsibility was keeping me from having to face those very normal feelings of grief, of loss, of isolation. All of that perfectionism kept me from connecting with the parts of myself that really needed my attention. And it took a series of panic attacks for me to finally face all of that pent up loneliness and sorrow that was underneath all of that perfectionism. Here's what I learned through my own experience and through walking so many other people through their own perfectionism. Anxiety is a master of disguise. It often shows up as perfectionism, as control, as people-pleasing, as overproducing, as avoidance, or even overachieving. Anxiety is really clever when we don't understand it's what's underneath all of those behaviors. You might be really great at helping others. You might be really great at always being the responsible one. You might be really great at helping keep the peace through managing other people's emotions. I don't deny that you aren't really good at doing those things. But the question I want you to think about today as you're listening is there anxiety underneath some of those behaviors? Let me give you two contrasting examples. You're hosting a dinner party. You want the house to look nice. You want the meal to be delicious, right? So you work hard to get that done. But at a certain point, you're also able to take a deep breath and say, this is good enough. What really matters is the company, is the conversation we're going to have around the table, is the opportunity to be with people that I really love. If this dish isn't perfect or if this part of the house isn't just right, it's going to be okay. That's the beauty of good enough. But when you slip into perfectionism, there's an anxious part of you driving you. And that shows up more like if it's not perfect, it's a complete failure. And you can feel the tension in your body as you work. You're not working from a place of joy, from a place of delight, from a place of overflow. Your work is fueled by that anxious part of you that has to get it just right. And here's the truth about perfectionism. Perfectionism is never about being perfect. It's about trying to keep yourself safe. safe from the scrutiny of others, safe from judgment and criticism, safe from our own inner shame, our fears of being rejected, of being abandoned, of being unworthy, unwanted, or not good enough. But here's the thing. Perfectionism will always keep you disconnected. It keeps you disconnected from yourself, disconnected from other people, and disconnected from God. Again, imagine those two different scenarios. The one where you're planning a dinner party for friends and you know when to say it's good enough because what I really want is to be with my friends, right? That's what really matters. And I don't want to be with the kind of people who wouldn't enjoy coming into my home if it's not perfect. Imagine that kind of freedom. On the other hand, when perfectionism is driving you, you're not even enjoying the time with your friends. You're so worried that they're going to see something out of place. They're going to see some dirt in the corner. They're going to see something that's not quite right. And you're not even able to take a deep breath and enjoy the camaraderie of the moment. If you relate to what I'm saying, if there's an anxious part of you driving you toward perfectionism, you know what a dead-end road that becomes. There is no perfect on the other side of perfectionism. It's an illusion, a mirage. It doesn't really exist. And here's what I want you to know. The surprising antidote to perfectionism is to ask yourself, what am I afraid would happen if I stopped? What am I afraid will happen if I stop editing this email for the 17th time? What am I afraid will happen if I stop cleaning? What am I afraid will happen if I stopped trying to make everyone happy? If I stopped over-preparing, over-functioning, and over-performing? What am I afraid might happen? Would I feel the angst of what it feels like to show up as a human being? Would I feel alone, unseen, unworthy? But when we name these fears, we begin to loosen the grip perfectionism has on our lives. Because almost always underneath our compulsive need meeting, our overproducing, our overfunctioning, our perfectionistic tendencies is a fear. I'm afraid they'll be mad at me. I'm afraid I'll be alone. I'm afraid I'll look like a fool. And these fears are very real. I don't mean to minimize them. Sometimes we face our fears and we realize, I don't even know why I'm afraid of that. That's not real in this moment. Sometimes we face our fears and we realize they might be real. I might be in a situation at work or at home or with a family member where I might be criticized if I don't get it just right. These are vulnerable places. These are tender truths, but it's a little bit of a paradox. As you get to the root of the fear underneath your perfectionism, it begins to loosen its grip. And here's the thing. As you get to the root of your fear, you can lead yourself through it. It may be that fear is of something that'll never happen. Your kids are going to be okay. Your spouse isn't going to hate you. Your work colleagues already know that you're putting in more than your fair share. And you can walk yourself through that fear and gently tell yourself the truth. In some cases, you'll get to the root of your fear and you might notice that, someone might be disappointed. Someone might misunderstand me. Someone might not like what I did or how I decided to show up. And even if that's the case, you will still be okay. You will still be loved. You will still be held by a God who is not evaluating your performance, but delighting in your presence. You do not have to be perfect to be loved. You don't need to manage every reaction to stay safe. You just need to be here present with yourself, with God, with this new understanding of what's going on inside of you. The perfectionism is never going to get those people to stop feeling or doing or thinking about you what they're already going to do, think, or feel. Right? Once you become aware of that fear, you can lead yourself through that situation with healthier boundaries. The work is never to perfect your way into belonging or into approval or into someone else's good opinion. That's never the path to take. The path is to reconnect with the part of you that's terrified and to let her know, I'm not going to leave you alone in this. You are already enough. You are already held by a God who does not need your perfection to earn God's love. If you are noticing any of those perfectionistic behaviors driving you, take a minute and ask yourself, what part of me is trying so hard right now? And what would it be like to sit with her and honor her fears in partnership with God? It can be so hard to find a good mattress, and sleep is so important to our health. And that's why I want to share a bit about my Birch mattress experience. Initially, I chose Birch for our guest room, but it was so comfortable that we got one for our master bedroom. I've noticed a significant improvement in how refreshed I feel each morning. Choosing Birch was important to me because I value sleeping on natural materials and avoiding harmful off-gassing. Plus, the hypoallergenic and organic materials used in Birch mattresses means I'm resting easy in comfort and durability. And each one is constructed with non-toxic materials and designed with breathability to keep you cool all night. And the best part? Trying a Birch mattress is risk-free with their 100-night trial. It ships directly to your door for free, rolled up in a box, and is so easy to set up. And Birch owns its own manufacturing facility and relies on skilled manufacturers to ensure the highest quality. Plus, every mattress comes with a 25-year warranty. I want all my listeners to enjoy a deep, restful night's sleep with a new mattress from Birch. Go to birchliving.com/bestofyou for spring savings of 20% off site-wide. That's birchliving.com/bestofyou and get 20% off site-wide. birchliving.com/bestofyou. In my years of being a therapist, one of the lessons I've learned is that not everybody benefits from a traditional 50-minute hour or even from typical weekly counseling sessions. This is why some people can go to couples counseling for months or even years and never really get anywhere or make any progress. This is why I'm such a believer in the intensive counseling process at Restoring the Soul in Colorado. Restoring the Soul was created by Michael Cusick to help couples or individuals experience deep change in half-day blocks over 1 or 2 weeks. Michael and his extraordinary team of therapists know that sometimes you just can't wait months or years to get to the bottom of an issue or to experience a needed breakthrough. For over 20 years, Restoring the Soul has helped couples and individuals transform their relationships and their lives. So if you're looking to get out of the rut you're in but can't wait months or years, contact Restoring the Soul today at www.restoringthesoul.com and learn how their intensive counseling process can jumpstart your journey or launch you to the place you want to be. And as a special gift just for the Best of You podcast listeners, make sure to visit www.restoringthesoul.com/bestofyou to download their PDF called 5 Ways Unresolved Trauma May Be Derailing Your Relationship. That's www.restoringthesoul.com/bestofyou. I want to close today with just a short guided reflection. You can take a minute if you want, if you're at home or in a place where it's safe to pause what you're doing and just close your eyes and follow along with me as I guide you through these questions. You might take a few deep breaths. Inhale slowly and then exhale. Let your body just arrive right here in this moment and just notice, what's one area of your life where you're trying really hard to get it just right? Maybe it's your parenting. Maybe it's your spiritual life. Maybe it's your work. Maybe it's your physical health. Notice that part of you that's working so hard to get it right and see if you can get curious about her without judgment or criticism. And then ask yourself this question: what am I afraid would happen if I stopped trying to be perfect? Just let that question sink in for a moment and stay curious to whatever it is that comes up. Maybe you're afraid that everything will fall apart or people will finally see who you really are. Maybe you're afraid you'll disappoint someone who's counting on you. Or maybe you fear someone else's anger or criticism. Maybe you're afraid that you'll be seen as lazy, selfish, or irresponsible. Or maybe you're afraid to feel how tired or lonely you really are. These are all valid fears. Whatever that fear is that shows up for you, just notice it. Maybe jot it down. Notice how you feel when that feeling surfaces. And above all, stay curious and compassionate with yourself. Take another deep breath as you notice that fearful part of you emerge, and say to that part of you, I see you. I get it. I know you're scared. It's okay. You don't have to hold it all together. You're not alone in this. I am here, and God is here with us too. And together we will find a better way through. And just notice how that fearful part of you responds to your presence, to God's presence, to that feeling of not being alone in this. And then jot down one thing you'd like to do. Maybe name that fear to a friend, or simply honor it in your journal, and check back in with yourself later on today or tomorrow, and just notice what it's like when you feel that perfectionism start to take you over, what it's like to acknowledge that fearful part of you. This is where healing begins, when we connect to that fearful part of us with compassion, and we begin to gently show up for ourselves more fully, more wholly, more spiritually alive. It's okay to feel this fear, but I'm also not going to let it drive. This process creates a space for you to pause, to take a breath, to be honest with yourself about what you're feeling, and to let yourself be met with kindness instead of pressure. You're slowly retraining your mind, your body, your spirit, your emotions to trust that you can show up for you. You don't have to be perfect to be safe. You don't have to be flawless to be loved. You are already held just as you are. Thank you for joining me for this week's episode of The Best of You. It would mean so much if you take a moment to subscribe. You can go to Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you listen to podcasts and click the plus or follow button. That will ensure you don't miss an episode, and it helps get the word out to others. While you're there, I'd love it if you leave your 5-star review. I look forward to seeing you back here next Thursday. And remember, as you become the best of who you are, you honor God, you heal others, and you stay true to your God-given self.
You know, over time, life can get you down. Discouragement starts to creep in, and eventually we just stop letting ourselves hope for more. We say things like, I'll believe it when I see it, and don't get your hopes up. Sounds like good grown-up advice, right? Actually, it's not. Hey, I'm Christy Wright, #1 national best-selling author, speaker, business coach, and mom of 3. Oh, and I have a podcast called Get Your Hopes Up, which is what I want to tell you about. Romans 15:13 says, May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him, so that you may overflow with hope by power of the Holy Spirit. And that is exactly what my show is about. Whether I'm telling one of my latest crazy God stories or giving you practical advice to live out your faith, I love hanging out with you every Monday to help you get to know God, get closer to him, and get your hopes up again. Listen to Get Your Hopes Up wherever you get your podcasts, and you can learn more at getyourhopesup.com. That's getyourhopesup.com.
What if more important than being right is how we handle being wrong? Holding tightly to ideas that can't adapt with new information is not a virtue, it's a vice. I'm Heather Thompson Day, and I'm inviting you to join me over on my podcast, What If I'm Wrong?, where I'll be your guide through real life questions.
Okay, today we have a submission story, and it is wild.
Subscribe to What If I'm Wrong? Available wherever you listen to podcasts.